This course is presented to you free of charge by TTJ Tech Services of www.ttjtech.biz and by Stir It Up of www.stiritup.com. And remember, stir is spelled with a U, not an I, so that's STURITUP.com. TTJ Tech Services and Stir It Up are pleased to offer this course to you, to the glory of God and to the benefit of all those who listen. There we go. Praise God. Praise the name of the Lord. Thank you, Jesus. All right, folks, this is session 21 of Voiceover In and Out, and we want to welcome you. We're glad to have you. Great crowd. Praise God. And after today, there's just 3 sessions left. Tomorrow, next Monday, and next Tuesday. We'll finish things up on Tuesday there. Remember that day is a Q&A day, so it's wrap up, and we want you to come prepared with your questions. Today, we are going to be talking about, well, we're going to do a couple things. We're going to talk a little bit about getting third-party apps from the App Store onto your device and some little tips and tricks. And then we're going to do a thing that has actually been pretty popular on the in the sort of tech community that a lot of tech bloggers do on YouTube, and that is what's on my iPhone. And so we're excited for me to go through the apps and just tell you what I have on my phone. It may spark some interest for you in something you may want to use. And we'll have anybody else who's here from the instructor team do that as well. In fact, I know that oftentimes Sarah on Tuesdays needs to leave early, so maybe I'll unmute her and see if she'd like to go first in case she has any apps that she wants to share a tidbit about. And then if we have time, I don't know if we will, but if we have time after those 2 things, we're going to talk a little bit about cell phone providers, cell phone carriers, and specifically digital SIM or eSIM, in case you ever want to get a different cell provider or learn how to sign up for a different cell service or what have you on your device. So that's today, and let me get Sarah right out of the gate here. Let me get her unmuted because, as I said, I know on Tuesdays she typically has to leave early, so I want to make sure that we give her a chance to share any apps that she might want to share. Let's take a quick look here. There's Trainer Sarah. Let's see. Okay. All right. Sarah, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Doing well. I know you sometimes have to, or usually have to leave early on Tuesdays, so I didn't know if you had any apps since we're doing what's on my iPhone. If there's anything you want to make sure that people know about in the third-party app world.
Okay, well, I probably have a microcosm of what you have. I have, all the usuals.
Right.
One of my most, all the usuals being actually just native apps like, messages and
All the all the
email
Apple
and
stuff.
phone and all that stuff.
Right.
But one of my most important ones is Bard Mobile. Because it's the National Library Service app for reading for books, and that is probably one of my most used apps. What else? Of course, some of the AI apps, a lot. Well, including Perplexity, which we talked about, and some of the other ones that you and Cliff talked about.
Right.
But and also navigational apps. For some reason, they're not coming to mind. What are they called? I have all sorts. I've got Ariadne GPS. I
Oh yeah, I
have,
remember that one.
yeah, it's old.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Voice Vista and all the different iterations of Voice Vista that have come out. There's different ones of those, and I use those quite a bit, different ones. But the Ariadne GPS, that's the one where I used to think, oh, all it was good for was, where am I? And
Right.
it would tell you where you were. But apparently, it's improved. Um, and but I still haven't given it a fair chance. I have the Meta Ray Ban, Meta AI app
Right.
for the Meta Ray
Right.
Bans.
I'll be experiencing that soon, and I'll certainly do a review on it because uh, Carson, most of you know Carson's my son. Sarah certainly knows that, but just in case anybody didn't, my son asked for Meta glasses for Christmas, although we actually got the Oakleys. So it's the second generation, but it's still the, Meta. And so we will be, we haven't opened them yet. He did check to make sure everything was there in the box, but we said he's got to wait till Christmas to actually use them. So we haven't done that, but I'll be trying those out once we do. So yeah.
Well, yeah, he'll have a lot of fun with those.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, I'm going by memory. I should probably not do that. Let's see what else I have. Oh, the Apple Podcast um, app, which I use daily. For news, for shows, for any kind of media. That I don't. Um, well, I just activated the Apple TV, and we'll see how that goes.
Oh, okay. The Apple TV service.
Yes,
Okay.
be,
Okay.
because I typically I'll activate a service. I'll be given 3 months, and then I will never open it up. And so this it's free for 3 months because I bought something, but we'll
Right. Right.
we'll see if we ever get to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. Dream Pack. I have all the well, it was Dream Pack folder. It was, the whole voice dream reader and all that.
Okay.
Now
Okay.
some of them are called different things. Because they split it all up.
Oh, okay.
Um, so I have a folder of those, which are to, places to store books, downloads, etc., and then have them read to you.
Right. Right.
Um, I've got Merlin Bird ID. Didn't you download that? Um,
I-
Matt, the Merlin Bird ID. It's basically it's an app that you use to look at birds, but obviously we don't look at them. We're just identifying the sound, and it can help you figure out what bird it is. And
Well, I didn't download it, but I think I said that I wanted to, and then I forgot about it. I'm glad you brought that up because I would like to do that. In this, and you've heard it because I've put it on for those who have listened to our. In the summer, I usually do at least a podcast. I think it was two or three this past summer about what we're up to over the summer, and I put some sound effects, and we have just absolutely beautiful, especially starting at about the middle of April and going through to probably close to the end of July, the mornings especially, the birds are just they just sound so happy and excited. And we live in a little bit of a rural area, so you get a lot of that in the morning. You get like a lot of crickets and frogs at night and so on. But I'd like to take that out there and some morning or whatever and just see what it says. I need to download that app. I forgot about that.
yeah, the last time I tried it was a few years. I mean, not the last time. When I first started using it a few years ago, you had to be more exact. You'd have to get closer to the
That's
bird
what I was going to
sound
ask you. Yeah.
and point at it. And apparently, it's a lot easier now. And you don't have to get close. It just whatever it hears is fine. If you get a picture, fine, but we're not going to get a picture of it, right? Unless we have somebody with vision
Right.
who's close by, or the bird is very sweetly sitting on our knee and letting us take our time to take a picture.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Done.
I have bank apps. I have like 3 different bank apps. Um, I have some radio. I have NPR and different iterations of NPR. I did try Duolingo. It didn't work for me.
Oh,
It
really?
was Yeah, it was really hard. This is before my trip to Spain, and it was really hard to do what they were asking for me to. The first lesson I did fine in, and then after that, it just got harder to choose the verbs or the words uh, to match up what they were
Okay.
saying.
I've used Duolingo and I don't really have any problem with it. I'm not 100% convinced that it is necessarily there might be better language learning apps out there. I don't
Yeah,
know. But of course,
yeah,
Duolingo has a big advantage for a lot of people, which is that it's free. At least for
yes,
one, I mean, you can pay. There are, super and family and all these different things, whatever they call it now. I don't even know. But, as opposed to something like Pimsleur or Rosetta Stone, where you absolutely have to pay.
right.
And so, I don't know, but I mean, it was fun. I still have the app. Um, and my wife and kids use it pretty regularly. But now Duolingo has all in one app. You can do language learning, you can do math learning, you can do music. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can do in it. So it's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I just found it difficult choosing the right matches, to create a sentence or to identify an object. And maybe I got frustrated too early, and I should try it again. Um, let's see. Well, I've got the Seeing Eye graduate app, which is good for me since I've gotten my last three service dogs from the Seeing Eye.
Okay, okay.
I have all the things that people normally have: Google Maps, Apple Maps. There's a bus line that goes that. Well, pre-pandemic, it was great. It's a little bit skeletal now, but
Oh,
a bus service that called the Link that you could go on to and look at the schedule.
okay, okay.
I have all sorts of airline, American, Delta, United apps. Some work better than others, but they're pretty decent.
Yeah, they are. I agree with you. I don't think I've used United, but I've used Delta and American, and they are decent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
and I've gotten, let's say on United, I was getting alerts to gate changes and
yeah.
boarding times, and it's so much better than it was when we first
Oh
started
yeah.
using them.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to go to the more interesting ones. Um, Way around is a tag, sort of a group of tags that you can put on, like in the kitchen, you can use them or sew them onto your clothes that you can point your phone at and it will read what it is. You can
Okay,
record.
okay.
You've heard that, right?
Well, I mean, I've heard of that concept. There was something I was thinking about that was an older device that sounds like it's replaced, but I don't remember. But I mean, that makes sense. That's neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wonderful for me. I've tagged all my spices and a lot of my, I have containers in the kitchen, but that I can say this is oats, this is rice, whatever, and I record it on there. It sticks on, and then I just do a point and shoot, and it tells me what it is, which is
And
amazing.
you'd find that probably quicker than just using like something like let's say seeing AI or something, right? Because you can feel the tag, I would imagine, so you'd always know you were pointing at the correct thing instead of maybe having to turn it around a couple of times or something. Is that the idea?
Right. Right. The tags will go on. Well, I put the tags on the top or maybe on the bottom.
Right.
And
Right.
the fact is, if you get Seeing AI or you get Be My Eyes, or not Seeing AI, but Seeing, anyway, yeah, or Be My Eyes, they'll look at it and then say, get closer, turn to the right, turn to the left. It's a while, and then they'll say, oh, I think that's rice, but get a little closer. Maybe it's brown rice, maybe it's so if I can label it because I know what it is, it's infinitely faster and more exact
Right. Right.
and more independent,
And so
which
you assign a name to the tag yourself then as well. Is
yes,
that correct?
yes.
So you could call it whatever you wanted to, I assume. I mean, if you really, I'm not saying that anyone necessarily would have to do it this way, but I'm just, so you could do, uh, this is the seasoning I use when I make chicken paprikash, or this, you know what I mean? Like it would be able to be more specific than just the name of the thing too, probably.
Right. And I got some silicone rubber bands so I can actually attach some of these tags. They're different, some of them are buttons, some of them stick on, and some of them have, sort of a slit in it so you can fit the rubber band in there.
Right.
And
Right.
I can put it on storage containers that I put in the freezer. So I'll say, vegetable soup made with chicken broth, made on 11/20/25, whatever.
Right. Right.
And so I'll know how old it is. I won't have to go in and try and smell a frozen thing, which won't give off much scent.
Right. Right.
um so that's also a game changer for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah,
um
because somebody who could see would write that on the container, possibly.
yep.
Put a piece of tape on there and just write it on. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I
And
could
when I
see.
was low vision, I did that. I
Right.
had tape on everything, and in large letters I'd write
Right.
what everything was.
Right.
And then when I went completely blind, I had to take all the tape off and just sort of like clean it up and put these tags on, which was
Right.
really nice. There's another one called the Talking Wand,
Oh, okay.
um, which is a point and shoot, but it comes with a wand. I think you can attach it to your iPhone, but no, I'm not clear on that one. But I got that one too. Just so helpful. Um, Anything that helps us be more independent.
That's neat.
It's AT&T, CVS Pharmacy. I have a travel folder because so I think that must be with all the apps with um all the apps for travel for airlines. And then I have something called Full Script, which is a place where I can get vitamins and things for less money.
Okay. Okay.
I have Dragon Dictation. I don't even know if it works anymore.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of almost not necessary anymore, but it'd be interesting to see if it still works. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I downloaded it when I heard there was an author I was listening to who said that's how he writes his books.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
That
really?
used to be, before dictation was baked into everything, which if I recall correctly, I could be giving you inaccurate information here, but my recollection is that a lot of the dictation parts of things that we use now were actually based on the Dragon framework. But I mean, back when I was a kid, Dragon was the gold standard. I remember when my dad first got that app. We didn't call them apps back then, but you know what I mean, on his computer, and he was so excited that he'd be able to dictate, and it was clumsy, and it was, took almost more hassle to use it, but it was, you just thought you had the best thing in the world. And then they came out with IBM Via Voice, which was another one, and I remember that one, and they were neat. I mean, it was the early days of it, and it's nothing like it is now. But yeah, Dragon was always the gold standard.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like you think about 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and 15 years ago, and just huge, huge growth
Oh my,
for
yes.
people
Yep.
with disabilities and blindness and all that.
Yep.
I have I have one called Where to Publish Flash Fiction.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's Brevity. Okay. It's a magazine. It's a okay, I've got Dark Weather, the weather app. Anyway, I mean, I can keep going, but there's, I don't know how many of these things people want to listen to. Um,
Oh, hey,
but it's all sorts of different things. If it has an app and it's useful to me, um, it'll be in my beginning pages. And otherwise, if I don't use them all the time, I will put them in a folder, um, and or they'll be like in the last few pages or the latter pages.
gotcha, gotcha.
Um, so I think I can stop there, unless you want me to go on for another hour and a half.
Oh, hey, if you and when I start, if you think of anything that you want to add or whatever, that's fine too, But yeah,
Okay.
I think that's great. Um, Now, probably most of our listeners, but maybe not all, are familiar at least with what Bard is. But remind us, it is something. Now, you have to sign up for that first, right? Like you have to make a call or go online and fill out a form or something the first time in order to be able to use it. Is that still accurate or not anymore?
No, it is. It's easier to get it because it used to be jumping through hoops. You had to, get an ophthalmologist or an optometrist to sign off on your having, your visual disabilities,
Right,
and then it became, not just visual, but people who just had issues with, how they could read, dyslexia, whatever.
right, right,
Um, but now it's a little bit easier, and I think you can have your caseworker, or you know since I haven't done it for years. I mean, I signed up years and years and years ago. I just know that it's easier, but I haven't done it.
right,
So you can go to your talking book library or call your talking book library, and they can help you fill out the form.
right, right,
And so they don't have to like see a signed copy of something.
right.
You might be able to do it, send them something on email, or
Right, right. And
something.
then the books that you listen to in there are actually human narrated, correct?
Yes, they're all human narrated. Some of them, they used to be all done by the Talking Book Library by NLS.
Right.
And now it's less expensive for them to get it from the publisher. So we're getting commercial audio.
I was going to say them. I was wondering if there would ever be some of them that are commercial, and then maybe the ones that don't have audiobooks available. I guess maybe they would still narrate themselves if they. I wonder if they'll start using AI narrators. I wonder if they've,
That's been the threat. I hope they don't. You know, because they're doing AI for movies now. For
Yeah,
the audio description, and they make huge mistakes. Which
yeah.
that with the biggest mistake being relying on AI to do it all. You have to have supervision. You
Well, I
have
think
to
you
do.
gotta. I think in order for it to sound good, it has to be cross-checked. You have to have a human listen back to it. And I think we may have talked about this a little bit when we did our AI uh, session a few weeks ago. But I find it funny, and it doesn't bother me because I just kind of chalk it up to yeah, it's AI. But there's part of my mind that thinks, if only someone would have checked this, they probably could have corrected it. It what it is like, you'll be going through a YouTube video that's been AI narrated, and 99% of it will be fine. But then there'll be a sentence where the inflection is just totally wrong. Like it'd be like, uh, "Thank you for listening to our special video today." Like
Right,
it's
right,
something really, and
right,
it's like,
right,
okay, it probably someone could have fixed that if they're,
right.
and as long as they're doing that, I don't have a problem with AI
Yeah.
narrators. I mean, now that
I
may be, blasphemous to some people, maybe they do, and that's okay, but I don't, as long as they go back and they proof it and make sure that it actually is decently
yeah.
narrated.
And I wouldn't mind the voice and all that, because it's just description. It's not like, it's
Yes,
not like a badly written
yes,
novel because it's so
yes,
flat because it's AI.
right,
It's really description, and I wouldn't have a problem with it, except that sometimes they misattribute a name to a
Right.
character,
Right.
or they don't tell you about certain things that are going
Oh,
on.
I see
And
what you're saying. So it is even the AI that's supposed to interpret it. It's not a script that's written and then the AI reads it. You're saying that the AI actually comes up with the descriptions too.
right, that they'll say,
Oh, yeah.
Melanie is crossing the hall to room 481, and it'll turn out it's not Melanie.
Right.
It's
Right.
Kathy, and
Right.
so
Right.
you're like, wait a minute, I've seen this movie before, and that is definitely not Melanie.
Well, now, what are your thoughts? I know this is way off from what's on my iPhone, but it's still tech, and we'll just do this quickly. What are your thoughts on the latest? I don't know if it's the latest trend, but a recent trend, which is that companies now are taking and using, and I don't know the legality of if they had to get permission or what. I'm not even getting into that. I'm just talking, what do you think about it? They're taking and using the voice of a potentially deceased narrator, somebody really, really, excuse the train there, somebody famous like Edward Herman, who narrated a ton of documentaries and all these things. And they're then putting his voice into a text to speech model, basically AI, and using him to narrate stuff that he's not narrating.
I think it's terrible, and
Really?
and I think it's sort of like, um, it, it's it's like taking somebody's written work, or their or their film work, or voice work, and attributing it, yeah, and it's like plagiarism almost.
Okay. Yeah,
And
I can
yeah, I
I
don't like
can
it.
yeah, I can understand that position. I don't know what my position is on it. I think I could probably see myself making a case for it both ways, especially if you had permission from the family or from the,
Yeah,
people who hold whatever copyright to whatever. I don't know. I really don't have a strong
yeah.
opinion on it, but I absolutely understand your position
and
definitely.
and what if
Yeah.
somebody took your voice and
Yeah.
basically taped it over and over and over
Well,
again until they got all of it together, and then
well,
you're
and
saying things that you're not actually
Well, and that's what
saying.
I was going to say. Sometimes they do it with people who are still living. And then
Yeah,
you get into an issue of, oh, I never really said that. And they're attributing something someone said to something that someone didn't really say.
right,
And
right.
yeah, and that's a whole other issue, which is
Yeah.
using it more for a potentially malicious type of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're actually
But I
doing
mean,
it,
if it's Jack Nicholson, right, and he
right,
has said, "Fine with me," that's okay. Fine. It's he's sort of got his own voice. Nobody else in the world will ever speak like him.
right,
He's
right,
noticeable. You can
right.
tell, and so if the person says yes, um, then fine.
Well, I sort of also feel like the use case matters here, right? So if it's Jack Nicholson narrating One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, great. If it's Jack Nicholson saying I hate such and such a president or I hate such and such a person when he really doesn't and really
Right,
would have
right.
never said that I have a problem with. You know,
But how do you corral that?
right,
I mean, how
exactly.
there's like, how do you write a law
Right.
and address that law and activate that law and make sure it's followed? You
Right,
can't.
right. I think that's one of the interesting things about the time we're in because there's going to have to be some cases, probably, or maybe there won't, but there's certainly going to be under consideration, I suppose, a lot of new legislation on things we never even imagined 50 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Taking someone's voice and that wasn't a thing.
yeah. The app 11 Readers, or 11 Lab, um, they have all sorts of voices on there. You can take and I have that on my phone. You can bring a document into that app and have one of their voices read it.
Right, right.
The problem I had, I was trying to export it, and all I could do was import. So I couldn't get it out of there and then like
Okay,
send something to
okay.
somebody with a voice. But what you noticed is they had all these new voices, and then the next week one of them would drop out. You'd get a new one, and so
Oh, okay,
it was
okay.
like somebody would take away their license and say, no, we don't want you using that voice anymore. And so
Right,
I don't know
right.
what was going on.
Right. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And of course, there are other sides to this too, because like the personal voice accessibility feature in VoiceOver for people who need it is probably a wonderful thing. I think about my father-in-law who now is able to speak, praise God, but for about a I don't know, 3 or 4 month period, and I might be a little off on the time. He couldn't because he had throat cancer that almost killed him. And I mean, he's a walking miracle, but it's now he's able to eat and he's able to speak and everything through it. Now he has to use a device when he speaks. But he there for a period of time couldn't at all. And he ended up using an app on his phone once he was, out of the hospital and all that, in the transition period. But the app, like the voice of the app was basically Alex, so he'd type what he wanted to say, and um and then Alex, what we know as the Alex voice, would read it back. I don't know if they called it Alex in that app, but that's what it sounded like to me. So now people can pre-record their voice, if they know there's some kind of surgical or medical thing, or whatever. And so I can see. And again, this is way off topic, and we just we could
No,
talk about it all
but
day,
it's
but
fascinating
it
because,
is fascinating.
I
Yes.
mean, my mother also, lost her larynx and, d- and wasn't able to speak ever again. And so she always wrote, in a
Yeah.
notebook. And wouldn't that have been nice if she could have just, typed out her responses or what she needed or whatever? It would have been so much quicker
Right.
and dynamic. So, that's a very lucky thing for him that he had
Yeah.
that he
Yeah.
has that. So, yeah. Now that we've delved into the medical world. Oh, I also have dark weather. Um, did I say that? It's the weather app. It's but I always go back to the Apple weather app. I like that the best.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Speech Tuesday. Call
You
microphone.
have
Cellular.
um
Home dash Effie.
you said dark weather also, was that the other one?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just another one, but I hardly ever use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speech off.
All right. Well, I think since we're on the topic of the apps, I'll do mine, and then we'll talk about the App Store. Um, but I want to share with when we talk about what's on my iPhone, and Sarah kind of referenced this as well. There's a very important sort of, you have to decide what works for you with regards to what I'll call app layout philosophy. That makes it sound very sophisticated, doesn't it? And very scholarly. But
Of
the
course.
reality of it is, like, so for example, on my iPads, I do not have folders. I think I have one folder with Apple Arcade apps that I share with my kids that they might want to play on my iPad, because I just thought it made sense to lump those into one folder. I think that's the only folder I have on my iPads, and we'll do that in the spring. But on the iPhone, it's interesting. I never had folders, but then I recently decided to make them. And so I've gone the other direction. My hesitations with folders, it's just not the way that I tend to do things, and it's wonderful that you can create folders. For me, it always added a layer of complexity because, okay, the folder might have multiple pages. So where in the folder is this thing? And sometimes I even have to think through what folder name makes sense here, or what folder would these apps best be suited for. But I did it on the iPhone finally, because I did start to see a pattern that things could fit into. I'm not 100% convinced that I've done everything right. Not that there's a right or a wrong, but even the way that I like it, I'm still in that process because I only recently did this. My daughter thinks that some of what I did is weird, but I'm going to go through it with you anyway. And I will also say that I do not have all of the same apps on my iPads as I do my iPhone. Now, a lot of them are the same. A lot of them are. But there are some cases where there are apps that are only on my iPads, and there are some cases that there are apps that are only on my iPhone. When I get to some of those, I may explain why. It's probably pretty obvious. So, looking through my apps here, the first page of apps is entirely the Apple apps set up and arranged the way that they came from Apple. I don't think I changed many of those. I might have moved one or two things around or put something on page two that was in page one, but for the most part, it's the way Apple had it. And my dock is what Apple had, which is phone, Safari, messages, and music. I think we've talked about the vast majority of these Apple apps. I don't know that we demonstrated weather or home or wallet yet, but they're very easy to use and very accessible, of course. Page, I think I also have a widget or two on there, but we'll deal with that maybe. Page two is also mostly all the Apple apps. There is a folder on page two which was created by Apple, and it's called the Utilities folder. And some of the older devices, they used to call it Extras, but now they call it Utilities. And in it, I think I've added something, one or two things that wasn't in it, but it has compass, measure, calculator, stocks, shortcuts, and feedback. The feedback app is because I'm a beta tester. I think voice memos maybe came in the utilities folder, but I moved it out of the folder because I use that one more frequently than some of these other ones. So then all of these are Apple apps as well. I've added a couple that maybe weren't there by default, like Apple has an app called Final Cut Camera, which allows you to use your iPhone as a camera for the Final Cut Pro app on your iPad. So I do have that. Then all the rest of these are Apple apps, the Apple Store, Clips, GarageBand, Keynote, Numbers, Pages, iMovie. I've downloaded the Apple Support app. That's an Apple app that doesn't necessarily come preloaded, but you can get it from the App Store, and it's useful for getting quick support answers or even starting a chat or a phone call with Apple if you need it. Now moving on to page three, we're going to get into the sort of non-Apple apps, and I have some of them outside of folders, and then I have a lot of folders on this page. So we start out with the Fandango app, which is an app that allows you to get movie tickets or find out movie information about what's playing in theaters and so forth. I have the Yelp and the OpenTable app, and those two I got mostly because they integrate with SIRI. I sometimes use those apps independently of SIRI, especially OpenTable. Yelp is kind of, businesses around you or businesses in a specific location. You can get a lot of information, restaurant menus, reviews, other things of that nature. But it integrates with Siri. Siri uses Yelp for some of its photos and its other things in search results, in maps and so on. And OpenTable is an extension of Maps. In other words, while you're in Maps, you can use OpenTable to book a table. I think you can do Yelp too, at different restaurants that support it. So I have those apps and use them pretty often, pretty regularly. Then I have the Wolfram Alpha Classic app, which also I got because it was an extension of SIRI. Certain things that you would ask, certain queries like what flights are overhead of me right now, or other questions that it can use that app and it displays that information. Well, if you have the app, sometimes you can get more information by going into the app. I have the Starbucks app, which of course everybody knows what Starbucks is, right? You pay for your coffee in this app, you can order things, whatever. And I have they take Apple Pay at Starbucks now, but I also have a Starbucks card in my Apple Wallet. We'll talk about Apple Wallet next week before we're all done with this class. Okay, I have the Wikipedia app, and again, mostly because SIRI will let you open, so I can, ask her, tell me about, such and such a person or such and such an event or whatever, and she'll read the key information from a Wikipedia article, but then there's going to be a button on screen that will allow you to open the article right up in Wikipedia. So I use it that way probably more than anything, but I go directly to the app sometimes as well. Then we get into the YouTube app, which I use quite a bit. SiriusXM. I have a cooking and recipe app called Ambre, spelled Ambre. That is the Spanish word for hunger. You use it when you say tengo hambre, meaning I am hungry, but the literal translation would be I have hunger. The thing is, when you're using the Ambre app, because it works with SIRI, You kind of have to pronounce it differently to get SIRI to understand it. I don't know if they'll ever deal with that or not. But so we say Amber, even though it's really Ombre. But we say I call it the Amber app because not because VoiceOver does, which Alex does call it Amber, but because that's how you have to say it to Siri if you want to use it. So there's lots of recipe apps out there. This is my absolute favorite. The reason is because it is packed to the hilt with integrations into Apple features and services. From start to finish, this app was like a playbook, in my opinion. I can't speak for the developers, but to me, it's like a masterclass in making use of all of the features and functionality that Apple gives to developers. If I wanted to create a recipe app, I like to use all of Apple's tools. I like to use, I like apps that use Apple's stuff. This is what I would have done. And it's brilliant. So it syncs with iCloud. You don't need a third party syncing service because it uses iCloud. It also uses iCloud sharing, so you can collaborate with other people who are not in your family shared group or your, Apple account or what have you. It uses the dynamic island, so you can leave the app and still see your recipe progress. It uses SIRI, so you can talk to her and say, Amber next instruction or Amber ingredients or whatever. I don't remember all of the shortcuts now that I have set up, but I do use them and they do work brilliantly. Because of that, it also works on the HomePod, which is Apple's smart speaker, so you could be in the kitchen with your phone in your pocket, not even looking at the steps, and hands-free talk to your HomePod and ask for the next instruction. It'll automatically set timers for you if they are in the instructions. It it has a widget. You can use widgets. You can use live activities. All of these are Apple features. It even has an Apple TV app, so you can display your recipes on the big screen. Now, how do you get the recipes? It's got an integrated web search feature, so you can search for recipes on the web, or you can use Safari and find your favorite recipe website and then copy the URL to the clipboard and paste it into the Amber app, and it will parse the recipe ingredients and cooking instructions and stuff, and you can save it to your library. In addition to that, there's a number of other ways you can enter recipes into your library. You can dictate them, you can manually type them, you can scan them in from a physical, cookbook or what have you, and you can even import them from other apps. And so if you get a file from, let's say, Paprika, you can open that up in Amber and import it that way. So there's just a number of ways to get recipes. As I said, this is my favorite recipe and cooking app. I won't spend that much time on every app, I promise, but that one I wanted to share with you why I like it so much. Now we are on okay, so my next thing, now I get into folders. And my first folder is Christian/Bible folder. In it, I have the Bible app, which you look in the App Store, it's called Bible. I think the developers called Life Church, but it's actually the YouVersion Bible. You find that out when you look at the description and so forth. Very, very good for Bible reading in multiple versions and translations and devotionals and audio and verse of the day and just a lot of really good stuff in the Bible app. Then I have Bible Gateway, also an excellent app. I have the Blue Letter Bible, BLB. I have a couple of different ministries that I follow, their devotionals and teachings and so on. Creflo Dollar, Kenneth Copeland. I'm going to be trying the Logos app as well, and there's another one I think that I wanted to try, but just as in addition to these. The next folder that I have is the restaurant/food folder, and this one has in it DoorDash, Grubhub, McDonald's, Pizza Hut, Applebee's, Mr. Beast Burger, Wendy's, Sheetz, Taco Bell, Burger King, Uber Eats, Resy, which is another reservation app, Olive Garden, and then a Best Way, which is a local pizza place that we can get delivery using the app there. Next up is the TV apps folder. Now, the actual Apple TV app is not inside this folder because it's on page 1 along with the other Apple apps. But in this folder, I have DirecTV, Tubi, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Peacock, HBO Max, Netflix, Paramount Plus. Next folder is the business folder. All right, I'll talk about some of these probably. Our first one is Universe. We talk a little about that in the iPad course. Universe is a very powerful website builder that was designed from the ground up for use on the iPhone and iPad. Therefore, it's designed for that. It's not like one of these that has a web interface that you're supposed to log in on your PC and then they've tried to use an app with that or something. No, the whole thing here is the app, and it includes e-commerce. So this is how I sell products and accept payments, and I can print shipping labels and stuff when people order from the website. Um, Anything you want to do with a website, it pretty much can do. There might be some things, maybe not, I don't know, but there's, I'm sure there's a couple that I might be able to think of, but it basically works for most people designing pretty much any kind of website you want. And there's a small fee for it. There's different tiers of packages now that you can get. Um, and that's the app we use, and it works brilliantly with VoiceOver. They have really improved VoiceOver support. They have dedicated a lot of time to the VoiceOver support, and so it works really well. Now, I would caution you, if you're going to try this, web design is still a very visual thing, because your best web designers use a block editor system. And that allows you to easily move things around. And so you can run into some issues about, is this block overlapping this one? Is this block big enough? They're supposed to automatically expand, but does it look good? Is it, and VoiceOver will tell you where the blocks are and stuff like that. But again, I think having a pair of eyes on this is pretty essential, but definitely the whole app is fully accessible. Um, I have an app in here that I was encouraged to get. I have not tried it yet. It's called Hi Hello, and it is designed to allow you to create digital business cards. Um, I have physical business cards, and I recently considered adding a QR code to those. And I also have a little plastic business card that I bought that strictly has a QR code associated with it. People can scan, and then of course you can use Name Drop, which requires no business card at all. You can just share basically over AirDrop your contact card with somebody else. But I was told at a conference that I was presenting at by someone that I ought to try this Hi Hello app, that I might really like it. Again, it's all digital business cards, and so again you can do QR and that sort of thing. Okay, I have the Google Meet app, which I seldom use, but I have it in case somebody needs to use it with me, or I need to. A lot of times, school districts will use that because they're Google Classroom schools and so forth. And so, if I need to meet with a teacher or a student or something, excuse me, I have the PayPal app, the Venmo app, the Square Point of Sale app, the FedEx app, which I use a lot. FedEx is my preferred shipping service. I have the Zoom app, of course, Meta Business Suite, which is part of the sort of Facebook line of things. Uh, the Calendly mobile app, which I have a Calendly uh, code on my website that lets people schedule appointments to consult with me and so forth. So this is the app for that. I have the Eco ATM app that allows me to get estimates on trade-in values for people's iPhones and devices and so on. The Cash app, the QuickBooks app, which is really my preferred payment system when I'm taking payments from people. Any of you that have purchased from me this year, from the holiday gift guide and so on, that's what we used. And when you got that beautiful invoice by email with the link to pay it, and it was so accessible, and you could enter your card information or use Apple Pay or whatever, that was QuickBooks, praise God. It is a fantastic, it's actually way more than I need for my business. There's a lot more in it that I can do that I don't even use. But just how easily I can create invoices, and how accessibly and easily other people can access them. It is a brilliant app. I really like QuickBooks. As soon I got QuickBooks, I used to use Square, which I still have, and it works. But when I got an invoice from someone who used QuickBooks, their invoice was just so beautifully done that as soon as I saw their invoice, the first thought was, I need to find out how they did this. And I was able to tell pretty quickly that it was QuickBooks. And I think that same day I signed up for a QuickBooks Simple Start account. All right, so that's my business folder. The next one I have is a finance folder, which I just have a few apps in here. These are mostly like, from our bank and so forth for online banking. And I do have the PA Toll Pay app, which allows you to manage your Easy Pass for the Turnpike. I think most states have some form of Easy Pass, and so they might have something similar to that. I've now got the Smart Home / Life folder. This has in it Canary, which is our indoor security cameras that we have. They're really good devices. They have two-way audio, they have night vision, they have auto arming, they have a night mode, they have a 90 decibel siren. They even have sound recognition, so they can detect certain sounds that you might want to be notified about. They have home health monitoring, so they'll let you know if the temperature drops below a certain point or the humidity is low, or air quality monitoring. So this is the Canary, and that's for the Canary devices. I have an app called YoLink. This is a little security system that we have. It's more of a notification system. I didn't really want a full professionally monitored security system. Praise God, I just wanted to know when somebody opened a door, these kinds of things. They have contact sensors, water leak sensors, smoke and CO sensors. They have glass break sensors. They have temperature sensors, all sorts of stuff. And you can buy a little speaker hub which can play tones and custom phrases. And so that's mainly what we use it for, but you manage all that through the YoLink app, and the YoLink app will give you notifications as well when a sensor is either detects something or is tripped or whatever. I have the Residio app. All right, I have the Residio app. I was saying that's the Honeywell. That is for our Honeywell Lyric thermostat. Now, I don't typically need to use that app very much because the thermostat is compatible with Apple HomeKit, so I mostly use SIRI or the Apple Home app, and there are other platforms you can control it in as well. But the Residio app does give you additional functionality that really is not in Apple Home or any of those kinds of things, because the um, the Home app. Um, oh, and speaking of, I need to. My mother-in-law had stopped in. Let me close the garage door. But the garage door uses the MyQ system, and um, that is another smart home device. But I have that app. The Honeywell app, as I said, it's called Residio. And basically, there are things you can do in that app, filter reminders and auxiliary mode, things of that nature, which you might not be able to do um, in the other platforms. We are in the smart home folder still, and we can see the Residio app. Coming after that, I have OneLink Home, which is our a couple of our smoke alarms use that. I also have some with that YoLink system that I told you about, but we do have that one as well. I have Govee Home, which is some of our lighting that we have throughout the house. Some of the rooms, the light strips and light bulbs and so on are Govee. Um, I have the VSync app, which works with our Kosori toaster oven that is on the holiday gift guide, and that's a 12-in-1 unit. It toasts, it air fries, it bakes, it warms, it broils, rotisserie, 12 different functions. And it works very well with Alexa, but it also has its own app where you can do more granular control. Again, the app is VSync. That's V as in Victor, E, SYNC. The next one is the Google Home app, which you use for any Google devices you might have. I have the Google Assistant app, although I don't think I need it anymore because it's been replaced with Gemini for Home, so I'll probably delete that app. Then I have the Amazon Alexa app, which of course I use with our Amazon Echo devices, so that's an important app to have. I also have in the Smart Home / Life folder the Ember app, which works with my Ember mug. It's a smart mug that keeps your coffee hot. Um, and I have the My Chevrolet app, which is for our car. I can remotely unlock and lock the doors and start the engine and all sorts of different things there. I also have the speed test app in the smart home slash life folder. It was one of those I wasn't exactly sure where to put that app, but typically I think about speed tests when I think about the smart home because you might want to check and make sure all your devices are receiving the best speeds. Right now, I can tell you I've got a ping or a latency of only 16 milliseconds, so praise God, that's very, very good. And what did it say? 2 or 3 milliseconds jitter. That's excellent, praise God. I got excellent speed, 210 megabits per second download speed, and upload of 110 megabits per second. Praise God. Those are fantastic numbers, glory to God. So that's my speed test app. That's the Ookla speed test app. I have the Blink app because I do have a Blink video doorbell and outdoor camera that I plan to set up. We don't have them set up yet, but I already have the Blink account. I have the MyQ app, which is the Chamberlain app I told you about for the garage door. I have an app here for another lighting. What is this? A smart plug, I think, that we got from Walmart, and it's GEENI, and that's one of the smart plugs. Not most of them that we have, but it is one of them, or two. I have the Canon Print app for our Canon printer. And then I have the Lenovo Link Pro. That was another smart light we had gotten at Christmas time or something. So that's the smart home and life folder. Then we go on and we find the shopping folder. And in this folder, I have Walmart, Weiss Markets, Sam's Club, Amazon, Best Buy, Target, eBay, Affirm, Instacart. Those are my shopping apps at the moment. In the family and lifestyle folder, I have, how long is this one? 2 pages. Okay, not so. I just wanted to see how many. We have 2 pages. So I have the Pandora app, AMC Theaters, Food Network Kitchen, the Tasty app. These are kind of recipes. The Metronome app, Speedometer app, Sky Guide, which lets you look at the sky and identify different objects and so forth. PNP Santa, which is Portable North Pole, Santa Tracker, and so on. LG ThinQ for our LG television. Here's another Santa Tracker. One called 50 Radio Pro, which is a scanner app. I mean scanner like listening to a scanner, the Prismo app. Prismo is Prizmo, and this app is one that I rarely use anymore because the PDF support that is built into Apple's devices now on iOS and iPadOS is so good that you really, really don't need this much. But every once in a while, you might run into a PDF that is especially challenging, and this Prismo app will allow you to turn that into regular text in a like an RTF or something else. And I think maybe even printed documents. I usually have used it for really complex PDF to text. So that is Prismo. I have the Weather Channel. Now, I also use the Apple Weather app. In fact, I use the Apple Weather app most of all. I really don't see the need to have a second weather app, except the reason I got the Weather Channel app is it is one of the few weather apps out there to give you a 2-week forecast instead of just 9 or 10 days. I think Apple Weather does 10 days. I use this a lot in the spring when I'm looking forward to it starting to warm up, and the next, 8 or 9 days still have 40s and 50s, and I think maybe if I look out farther, I'll see 60s and 70s, and praise God, I usually do, and so I kind of have that app just for that reason, to be honest with you. It does do some nice alerts, but really so does the Apple Weather app. So it's not one that I use too often, but it's the Weather Channel. Then I have the Music Speed app, which allows me to change the key or the tempo of songs, which is kind of fun. I have the Family Link app. Where did I get that app and what do I have it for? I'm trying to remember what that app even is. Let me go to the. Oh, let's see. How can I do this? I want to see its App Store page. I think this app. What is Family Link? I don't remember why I had this. Okay. Um, oh, I know what it is. I know what it is. Yeah, it is a Google app that lets you manage child accounts because the laws now are such that my daughter has to have a child account, and so I can manage her content ratings and access and so forth through the Google Family Link app. That's what it is. There's an app called Huddle Fan, which our local high school uses for its games like football and so on to live streams them. There's the Swift MD app, which is telemedicine, and there's the Sonos app for Sonos speakers. And I don't have that many Sonos speakers. Mostly we have HomePods, some Amazon Echoes, but I do have a portable Sonos speaker, and I'm about to have a Sonos soundbar in one of our uh, downstairs family rooms, and I'm gonna do a review on those when the time comes. All right, that completes the family and lifestyle folder. Just a few more. The next one is the AI apps folder. In it, I have ChatGPT, Be My Eyes, which I put in there even though it's got a live component because it does have Be My AI, so I kind of view that as an AI app now. I have an app called Live Read, which was recommended to me. It's a very, very simple app if you've never used Live Read. It simply, you hold the phone up to text, a letter you got in the mail, a menu, whatever, and it reads it to you. It's really, really, really simple. I've got the Grok app, Gemini, the Google app itself, the one that's just called Google, that can kind of be your search engine with Google Lens and all these different things. I don't really use it much because I typically use Safari when I'm doing that kind of thing, but I do have the app. I think my daughter wanted it for something on my phone one time, and as I said, I have the Gemini app, and that's it for the AI apps that I have there. Then we get into the social networking folder, in which you're going to see Twitch, Facebook, TikTok, Truth Social, and Messenger. And I thought I had X, formerly known as Twitter. Um, and I don't know why I don't actually have it on here because that is one that I am also on is Twitter. So I don't know what happened there. I'll have to look at that. The games and fun folder has 20 apps. I'm probably not going to read all of them to you because many of them are not necessarily accessible, but my kids like them and we play them together as a family, praise God. I will tell you the ones that are definitely accessible, and then if you ever want to know the other ones, you can ask me. 5 Second Guess is a fun app that lets you play with multiple people, and it'll say name three, I don't know, let's say name three summer fruits, or name three actors whose names start with A, or whatever, but you only have 5 seconds to do it. It's harder than it sounds, but that's a fun game. Akinator, that's also accessible. It tries to identify, you think of a person, a character, a real or fictional person, or a pet, or something like that, and Akinator is going to ask you questions until it identifies who you're talking about, and it's usually pretty good at it. I have two different apps that have to do with the sitcom Friends, and they are both, I think, accessible. And one's called Pivot, and one is called Trivia for Friends. Um, the other accessible ones, let's see, Words Chain, I think, is accessible. Um, I think that one's accessible, but I've never really played it, so I'm not gonna mention it if I haven't tried it. But then there's some other accessible ones that I have on my iPad, so we'll do that in the spring. Um, I also have a folder specifically of Kylie's games because she put some other ones on there. I have a phone services folder which includes the My AT&T app, the My Verizon app, the AT&T Active Armor app, and that's all in there. And then I have the travel folder. This has in it Hilton Honors, OnStar Guardian, Amtrak, Universal Florida, Hershey Park, Disney World, Marriott Bonvoy, Lyft, American Airlines, IHG, which is a hotel chain, Bands in Town and Ticketmaster, which are both like
Teresa P.
concert
left.
ticket apps. Uber, and I don't know if I said Fly Delta. Again, I'm wondering if I forgot to put a couple apps in folders. That's another one I know that I have. So I might have to check where that one's at, because that and the X app should both be here. I know I have Fly Delta. I have the education folder, which very simply has Schoology and our local school district app. All right, that's both. Those are both for our kids, and that is the extent of the apps that I have. I do have some widgets on additional pages that I can quickly access if I want to look at real-time information without having to open an app. And I even have shortcuts where I can immediately just tap or just double tap for me to call my wife, my son, and my daughter, and they're all just here on the home screen. So those are shortcuts. But that's going to complete the list of apps that I have. And then we're going to take your questions as soon as I share one other thing, which is just about the App Store. Because some people like to have some tips and some tricks about the App Store. And the App Store is super easy to use. There's a lot of free apps. There's some paid apps. There's apps that are free to try, and then you have in-app purchases to subscribe for more advanced features and otherwise. You'll find there's millions of apps in the App Store, right? So you just need to search for things. You can look at the featured apps and app of the day and all this too.
1302. Speech off.
There we go. And the only other thing I'd say, sometimes we get the question of, is such and such an app accessible? And the answer is, you need to try it. Most apps are accessible, assuming that they're not really like super graphical games or something. But there are different degrees of accessibility. Sometimes you'll find an unlabeled button or something. That to me is not a deal breaker if you can work through it and figure out what it does. Apple is pretty willing to work with you if you purchase an app and it is just totally unusable. You can request a refund through Apple support. So I tell people, try the app for yourself. Spend some time using it and see whether you like it. Because accessibility isn't the only factor. You also need to make sure that the app is, equipped with all the features that you want it to have, that you want to make sure it is the way you like it. So I think it's important to actually do that. Try it for yourself, and that's kind of the only thing I wanted to say about the App Store. You can read reviews. I sometimes do, but you have to be careful not to put too much stock into those, because sometimes people will complain without really knowing the story behind what it is that they're complaining about. In other words, maybe they think an app really doesn't work well, but no one's shown them how to properly use it. Or they maybe think an app isn't working consistently, and maybe it turns out their Wi-Fi isn't very good in their home, or, something like that. So you just need to be careful. Take the reviews with a grain of salt. Now, if you have, 10 or 15 or 50 or 60 reviews that all say the same thing, that's one thing. Then maybe you start now to think, yeah, I can understand this maybe is an app I want to avoid, or, this is something I really wish it had, or whatever, But I would encourage you to spend some time trying different apps when you want to do something specific. And that is going to really conclude what we have to say about that.
Thanks for joining today's session. Didn't get your question answered? Have an additional comment or feedback? Email us info@ttjtech.biz or info@stirritup.com. And remember, stir is spelled with a U. That's STURITUP.com. Or check out our websites for additional resources. That's ttjtech.biz or stirritup.com. And remember, subscribe to the newsletter when you're there. That way, you don't miss out on any upcoming announcements or events. Thanks for joining us. God bless, and see you next time.